What would you do if you came home from war, only to find that the real battle was waiting for you at your own front door? Captain Torres never imagined that the enemy he'd have to face wasn't in a foreign desert, but living in his own house, slowly destroying the one person he'd fought so hard to protect. Captain Diego Torres had spent 3 years leading special operations missions in Afghanistan and Iraq. His hands, scarred by shrapnel and hardened by firefights, still instinctively reached for weapons when he heard sudden noises. The Distinguished Service Cross in his jacket was earned during a rescue mission that saved 12 hostages but cost him 2 close friends. At 34, Diego carried himself with the quiet confidence of a man who had stared death in the face. His dark brown eyes held depths that spoke of classified operations and life-or-death decisions. But beneath the warrior's exterior beat the heart of a devoted father who had carried his daughter's photo through every mission. The promise he'd made to 8-year-old Phoenix before leaving sustained him. "Daddy will come home, princess. No matter what happens, I'll always come back to you." Those words had carried him through the darkest combat moments. Phoenix Torres was not an ordinary 8-year-old. While other children were content with video games, she painted watercolor landscapes that captured emotions most adults couldn't express. Her bedroom walls were covered with artwork that told stories, fantastical creatures, distant mountains, and always a soldier figure standing protectively near a small girl. She possessed intuitive understanding of people that often unnerved adults. Phoenix could sense when someone was sad, angry, or lying with startling accuracy. Her thick, dark hair framed a heart-shaped face dominated by expressive brown eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. The little girl had inherited her father's artistic eye and her late mother's gentle spirit. She kept a journal filled with letters to her daddy and pressed flowers from their garden. Each entry ended the same way: "Come home soon, Daddy. I'm being brave for you." The Torres household had once been filled with laughter. Diego would wake Phoenix with silly voices: pirate, robot, or just Daddy making her giggle. Their breakfast routine involved pancake art, where Diego poured batter and Phoenix declared what shape it resembled. Evenings were sacred. After dinner, they'd spread blankets for adventure planning sessions. Diego showed her maps, and she would point to random locations as their next vacation destination. Weekend hiking trips were legendary. Phoenix packed her backpack with snacks and sketchbook. Diego taught her compass directions and plant identification. "A Torres never gives up," he'd tell her. "We protect the people we love." When she asked why he had to leave, he knelt down. "Sometimes protecting people you love means making hard choices, princess." The deployment orders arrived on a Tuesday morning. Diego was helping Phoenix with homework when his secure phone buzzed. "Emergency deployment. Special operations. Report for duty in 48 hours. Diego stared at the message while Phoenix continued working, her tongue poking out in concentration. How do you tell your 8-year-old that the war she thought was ending was about to steal her father for an indefinite period? That evening, Diego sat Phoenix down in their favorite spot. "Princess, I need to talk to you about something important." Her face grew serious, wise brown eyes studying his expression. "You're leaving again, aren't you, Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart. I have to go help some people who can't help themselves." Diego reached for her hands. "How long this time?" Phoenix asked. "I don't know, princess. Maybe a long time, but I promise, no matter how long it takes, I will come home to you." They spent their final 48 hours creating memories. They painted a mural on Phoenix's bedroom wall, depicting their planned adventures. They recorded videos of Diego reading bedtime stories. Most importantly, they established their communication protocol, weekly video calls, and the solemn promise that honesty would always exist between them. Finding care for Phoenix was Diego's biggest challenge. His parents had died when he was 25, and Phoenix's maternal grandparents lived in assisted care. The choice came down to military family services or his half-sister Victoria, who had recently moved to town after her divorce. Victoria Torres Hamilton appeared perfect. At 31, she was a successful real estate agent with a spotless home and impressive community involvement. During their meetings, she doted on Phoenix, praising her artwork and promising educational activities. "You focus on your mission, Diego. Victoria said with tears as they signed guardianship papers. Phoenix will be safe, loved and stimulated. I'll make sure she keeps up with her art, her studies, and her connection to you. Her references were impeccable, and Phoenix seemed comfortable with the arrangement. The night before deployment, Diego tucked Phoenix into her new bedroom at Victoria's house. The room was beautiful, decorated in pastels with an easel by the window. Remember, princess, Aunt Victoria loves you. Be good, be brave, and remember Daddy loves you more than all the stars in the sky. I love you more than all the fish in the ocean, Phoenix whispered back. As Diego left, he noticed Victoria watching from the doorway, her expression unreadable in the dim light. For 6 weeks, Victoria maintained the facade during video calls. Phoenix appeared happy, showing artwork and discussing books. Diego felt grateful. But when the screen went dark, Victoria's demeanor shifted. The warm aunt disappeared, replaced by someone cold and resentful. Your father thinks he's so special, she would mutter. Always the golden boy. Victoria started criticizing Phoenix's manners, artwork, and questions about Daddy's calls. Stop being so needy, she would snap. Your father isn't here to coddle you. The first punishment came when Phoenix spilled grape juice on Victoria's carpet. The slap was swift, leaving a red handprint. Clumsy little brat. Do you know how much that costs? Then Victoria would soften. Oh, sweetheart, Aunt Victoria is sorry. We won't tell Daddy, will we? He has enough to worry about. Phoenix learned her first lesson. Some truths are too dangerous to tell. By Diego's 3rd month of deployment, Victoria's true nature emerged. Phoenix's meals became sparse, toast and water for breakfast, often no lunch, leftovers for dinner. Physical abuse escalated from pinches to slaps, to shoving Phoenix into walls. Victoria targeted areas hidden by clothing, but psychological torture was worse. Victoria began destroying Phoenix's self-worth. He doesn't really love you, she would whisper. If he did, he wouldn't have left you with me. He knows what I'm like. Phoenix's artwork was torn up. Her journal was destroyed. Pressed flowers from their garden were dumped in garbage while Victoria forced her to watch. Your father isn't coming home. Soldiers like him don't survive. The child who once painted with joy began producing dark images, faceless figures, empty rooms, caged birds. Her self-portraits showed a progressively thinner, sadder version of herself. Before video calls with Diego, Victoria would clean Phoenix up just enough to avoid suspicion, coaching her with threats. Remember what happens to little girls who tell lies. If you distract him with stories, his blood will be on your hands. Miguel Santos lived next door and had known the Torres family for 4 years. As a retired teacher, Miguel could recognize when something was wrong with a child. The Phoenix he remembered was vibrant and talkative, waving from her window each morning. The child he observed at Victoria's was a hollow-eyed shadow who moved carefully and spoke quietly. Miguel started keeping observations. Phoenix's appearance deteriorated. Clothes became loose. Hair lost shine. Dark circles appeared. The child who once played now moved with careful steps of someone afraid of making noise. At Riverside Elementary, teacher Mrs. Alexandra Reeds noticed changes. Phoenix's performance plummeted from exhaustion. During lunch, she sat alone, picking at food, often stuffing portions into her pockets. Most concerning were new patterns. She flinched when adults approached. She hoarded classroom supplies. During creative writing, her stories became dark with themes of isolation and children who disappeared. 4 months into deployment, Diego noticed changes during video calls. Phoenix's responses became shorter, guarded, lacking natural curiosity. Her artwork rarely appeared during calls anymore. Most troubling was her physical appearance. Despite Victoria's careful preparation, Diego's trained eye picked up details that didn't align with reports of Phoenix's well-being. His daughter seemed thinner, her eyes held new weariness, and her smile appeared forced. During one call, Diego noticed Phoenix wincing when she shifted position. When he asked if she was hurt, Victoria quickly explained about a bicycle accident, but Phoenix's eyes darted nervously between them. Miguel Santos finally called Diego directly. Captain Torres, I've been concerned about Phoenix. She seems different, thinner, quieter, more fearful. Sleep became impossible. The breaking point came when Phoenix appeared wearing long sleeves despite summer heat. When she moved her arm, fabric revealed what looked like finger-shaped bruises on her wrist. That night, Diego made a decision that could have ended his military career. He submitted an emergency hardship discharge request, citing credible concerns about his daughter's welfare. When initially denied due to his critical mission, Diego went over his commanding officer's head until someone listened. "Captain Torres, you're asking to abandon a mission that could save hundreds of lives based on parental intuition," his colonel pointed out. Diego looked his superior straight in the eye. "Sir, I've served this country with honor for 12 years. But if my daughter is in danger, no mission on Earth is more important than protecting her." The discharge process took 3 weeks. 3 weeks during which Diego barely slept, consumed with guilt about everyday Phoenix, remained in potential danger. He used every contact to gather information about his daughter's condition, and each report painted a progressively more alarming picture. Miguel Santos provided detailed observations about Phoenix's deteriorating condition. Mrs. Reeds shared documented concerns about behavioral changes, suggesting serious home problems. Even Victoria's neighbors began reaching out with stories about raised voices, prolonged crying, and a little girl who had stopped playing entirely. Within hours of receiving his discharge papers, Diego was on a transport plane heading home. During the flight, he alternated between reviewing evidence and planning his approach to what had become not just a homecoming, but a rescue mission. The taxi dropped Diego off at Victoria's Street, just as the sun was setting. He shouldered his duffel bag and walked 3 blocks to his sister's house, his eyes automatically cataloging details. The neighborhood seemed quiet, normal, a stark contrast to the war zone he'd left behind. Victoria's house looked immaculate from outside. Perfect lawn, blooming flowers, nothing suggesting anything other than suburban normalcy. But as Diego approached, something felt wrong. The house was too quiet, windows too carefully curtained, radiating artificial perfection. Instead of ringing the doorbell, Diego's special operations training kicked in. He moved silently around the house perimeter, looking for signs of his daughter. What he discovered in the backyard made his blood run cold. Phoenix was sitting on the back steps, but sitting was too generous. She was collapsed against the railing, her small body lacking strength to hold itself upright. Her clothes hung like drapery on a mannequin, at least 2 sizes too large for her dramatically reduced frame. Her dark hair, once thick and shiny, hung limp around a face that barely resembled the child he'd left behind. The little girl who had once run to greet him now struggled to lift her head when she heard footsteps. When she saw him, her eyes widened with disbelief, hope, and something that looked like fear. "Daddy!" The word came out barely more than a whisper. Diego's world tilted as he processed evidence of systematic abuse. Phoenix tried to stand when she recognized him, her face lighting up with joy, but her legs buckled immediately, and she collapsed back onto the steps with a soft cry of pain and frustration. The warrior who had remained calm under enemy fire completely lost emotional control, seeing his skeletal daughter struggling to stand. Diego covered the distance in 3 strides, dropping to his knees and gathering Phoenix into his arms with infinite gentleness, terrified she might break. Phoenix felt like a bird in his hands, all hollow bones and fragile hope. She weighed perhaps half what she should, her body having consumed its own muscle mass to survive systematic starvation. "I'm here, Princess," Diego whispered, his voice breaking. "Daddy's here now. Nobody will ever hurt you again. I knew you'd come back," Phoenix whispered against his chest. "Aunt Victoria said you forgot about me, but I knew you'd come back. I tried to be brave, Daddy." The fact that she was apologizing, that she felt the need to justify her survival, broke something fundamental in Diego's heart. The back door opened and Victoria appeared, her face cycling through shock, guilt, and angry calculation. "Diego, what a surprise. You should have called ahead. She's been feeling under the weather lately, haven't you, sweetheart?" Diego stood slowly, still holding Phoenix, his dark eyes fixed on Victoria with intensity that made her step backward. When he spoke, his voice carried controlled menace. "We're leaving, now, and if you try to stop me, I will forget that you're family and treat you like what you are, an enemy who tortured a prisoner of war." Victoria's facade cracked. "You don't understand, Diego. She's been difficult, ungrateful, acting out. I had to establish discipline, structure. The only consequence that matters now is yours, Diego interrupted, his voice deadly quiet. And trust me, Victoria, it's coming. Diego drove directly to Riverside Children's Hospital, holding Phoenix on his lap because she seemed too weak to sit upright alone. During the short drive, she fell asleep against his chest, her breathing shallow, her small hand clutching his jacket as if afraid he might disappear. Dr. Amelia Chen, the emergency room pediatrician, struggled to maintain professional composure as she documented the extent of abuse. After 2 hours of examination, she pulled Diego aside with findings that would fuel nightmares for years. Captain Torres, your daughter has lost approximately 40% of her body weight. She's severely malnourished, dehydrated, and showing signs of prolonged physical abuse, including healed fractures and evidence of repeated impact trauma. Dr. Chen's voice remained steady, but her hands shook. This represents one of the worst cases of child neglect I've documented in 15 years. Blood work revealed vitamin deficiencies consistent with starvation, liver stress indicators, and markers that painted a horrifying picture of a child whose body had been cannibalizing itself to survive. She's also showing signs of complex trauma, psychological damage that will require extensive therapy. Physical healing will take months, but emotional recovery may take years. Child Protective Services arrived within hours, led by Supervisor Janet Morrison. Captain Torres, while you're Phoenix's biological father, the abuse occurred under a legal guardianship arrangement you established. We need to conduct thorough investigation to ensure Phoenix's future safety. The system that should have protected his daughter was now questioning his fitness as a parent because he had trusted his sister. Diego realized he faced a different kind of warfare, one where rules were designed to protect institutions rather than children. Diego hired family law attorney Rebecca Martinez, a former military prosecutor who specialized in custody cases involving military families. Captain Torres, we're not just fighting for custody, Rebecca explained. We're building a case that will ensure your sister faces criminal charges and that Phoenix receives the support she needs for full recovery. The evidence collection revealed the systematic nature of Victoria's abuse. Miguel Santos provided detailed documentation, including photographs of Phoenix during her rare backyard appearances. Mrs. Reeds contributed academic records showing Phoenix's dramatic decline and copies of unreturned messages to Victoria. Most damaging was Victoria's own digital trail. Her social media showed expensive purchases and vacation trips, all funded by Diego's military family support payments. Bank records revealed virtually none of the money had been spent on Phoenix's care, instead funding Victoria's lifestyle, while Phoenix was systematically starved. Dr. Sarah Williams's psychological evaluation provided crucial evidence about the deliberate nature of abuse. This child was subjected to calculated psychological warfare designed to destroy her sense of self-worth and connection to her father, she testified. The abuse follows patterns used to break down prisoners of war. Media attention built when local veterans organizations learned about Phoenix's situation. The story resonated powerfully with military families and civilian supporters. Social media campaigns demanding justice gained momentum, putting pressure on law enforcement to take decisive action. Within weeks of Diego's return, Phoenix's story captured national attention as military families, veterans organizations, and child advocacy groups rallied around their case. The GoFundMe campaign raised over $200,000 in its first month, demonstrating public outrage surrounding the abuse of a soldier's daughter. Major General Patricia Hayes, Diego's former commanding officer, used her platform to highlight vulnerabilities faced by military children during deployments. Captain Torres served with distinction, trusting our support systems would protect his daughter while overseas, she stated. The failure to safeguard Phoenix represents betrayal of every service member who makes similar sacrifices. Local businesses offered support services. A therapy practice donated trauma counseling. A nutritionist provided specialized meal planning. Most meaningfully, children from Phoenix's former school created artwork and letters welcoming her home. Legal proceedings moved forward with unusual speed as public pressure mounted. Evidence of financial fraud, child abuse, and neglect painted a clear picture of systematic criminal behavior that had endangered Phoenix's life while her father served overseas. Phoenix began showing recovery signs as her needs were finally met consistently. Dr. Chen documented steady weight gain and gradual return of personality traits that had made her remarkable before the abuse. Her artwork began featuring themes of rescue and healing, rather than dark imagery from her captivity. Victoria Torres Hamilton was arrested 6 weeks after Diego's return, charged with child abuse, financial fraud, and endangering a minor. The evidence was overwhelming. Medical documentation, financial records showing misuse of military support funds, and witness testimony from neighbors, teachers, and healthcare providers. During arraignment, Victoria attempted to portray herself as an overwhelmed caregiver who made mistakes under stress. Her defense argued she had received no training in childcare and was unprepared for raising a military child during wartime. But prosecutor James Mitchell systematically dismantled these arguments. The most devastating testimony came from Dr. Williams, who explained how Victoria's treatment followed established patterns of psychological torture. This was not stress-related poor judgment, Dr. Williams testified. This was systematic abuse designed to cause maximum psychological damage while maintaining plausible deniability. Phoenix's own testimony, delivered via closed-circuit television, provided heartbreaking details about her months of captivity. Her clear, quiet voice describing hunger, isolation, and repeated messages that her father would never return created profound silence in the courtroom. "I kept drawing pictures of Daddy coming home because Aunt Victoria said it would never happen. But I knew she was wrong." The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Victoria was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison without parole for 8 years, along with restitution requirements for medical, legal, and therapeutic expenses. Judge Sarah Thompson's sentencing statement captured community outrage. The defendant systematically tortured a child whose father was risking his life in service to our country. This sentence reflects the severity of crimes that targeted one of our nation's most vulnerable populations, children of deployed service members. Recovery was a daily process requiring patience, consistency, and professional support. Diego took early retirement from the military to focus on Phoenix's rehabilitation, using his benefits to access the best pediatric trauma specialists. Their new apartment was chosen for its proximity to medical facilities and quiet, secure environment. Physical recovery came first. Under Dr. Chen's supervision, Phoenix gradually regained healthy weight and energy. Her hair regained its shine, dark circles faded, and her smile appeared more genuinely. Simple activities like walking or playing became milestones worth celebrating. Emotional healing proved more complex. Phoenix experienced nightmares, panic attacks from unexpected sounds, and periods when she became nonverbal or refused to eat. Dr. Williams worked with both to develop coping strategies and communication techniques that supported her sense of security. Art therapy became crucial to Phoenix's recovery. Through painting, she began processing experiences she couldn't verbalize. Her artwork evolved from dark, fearful imagery to increasingly hopeful scenes depicting safety and family reunification. 6 months after Diego's return, Phoenix participated in a victim impact statement for Victoria's sentencing. Her words demonstrated both the damage inflicted and her resilience. "Aunt Victoria tried to make me forget I was loved, but I never forgot. Even when I was hungry and scared, I remembered Daddy would come home." 1 year later, Phoenix celebrated her 9th birthday surrounded by new friends, neighbors who had supported them, and medical professionals who guided her healing. She blew out candles on a cake decorated with her own artwork, mountains and stars representing adventures she and Diego planned to share. Phoenix had regained healthy weight and energy. Her artwork returned to themes of hope. Her academic performance recovered to exceed pre-abuse levels. Most importantly, her relationship with Diego had grown stronger through their shared survival and recovery experience. Phoenix found her voice beyond personal recovery. She began participating in child advocacy programs, sharing her story with other young survivors and demonstrating that healing was possible. Her testimony before state legislative committees helped pass new protections for children of deployed service members. Most meaningfully, Phoenix began reaching out to other children in foster care, offering artwork, letters of encouragement, and the message that surviving abuse wasn't their fault, and that loving families existed even when they seemed impossible to find. What began as a father's worst nightmare became a story of resilience, justice, and the unbreakable bond between parent and child. Diego's decision to trust his instincts and come home when his daughter needed him most demonstrated that sometimes the greatest act of service is protecting one's own family. Phoenix's recovery inspired changes in the child protective system. Elena Rodriguez was promoted and implemented new protocols for follow-up on abuse reports. Victoria's case became a teaching example about thorough investigation and the dangers of assuming family members are automatically safe caregivers. Most importantly, Phoenix herself embodied the possibility of healing after severe trauma. Her journey from victim to advocate demonstrated that even severe abuse could not destroy the fundamental resilience of a child who knew she was loved. On quiet evenings, Diego and Phoenix would sit on their apartment balcony, looking out over city lights while she worked on homework and he read. Their conversations covered everything from school projects to future college plans. "Daddy," Phoenix said one evening as they watched the sunset, "I'm glad you came home when you did, but I'm also glad I was strong enough to wait for you." Diego smiled, understanding that his daughter had learned the most important lesson, that love is patient, hope is powerful, and even in the darkest circumstances, rescue is possible for those who refuse to give up. Sometimes the greatest battles are not fought on foreign battlefields, but in our own communities, for the safety of our own children. And sometimes it's about a little girl who survived hell and emerged with enough love left in her heart to help other children find their way home too.